Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, representative of the 28th District of California and chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, or what we call CAPAC. I'm so honored to have this opportunity to speak to you at today's Jimmy Carter Forum on U.S.-China Relations. Thank you to the Carter Center for hosting this very important conversation. First, I want to express my condolences for the recent loss of former First Lady Rosalynn Carter. Her work to create a more caring society has had such an enduring impact. As the only psychologist in Congress, I am especially thankful for her work to promote the importance of mental and emotional health. So many have benefited from her legacy on our country. Almost exactly 45 years ago, President Carter made a courageous decision to establish diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China. He did so because he believed in the power of diplomacy and understood that communication and cooperation would deliver benefits not only to the American and Chinese people, but to the world. I believe that assessment proved correct, and I admire President Carter's courage to forge ahead despite political pressures at home. His leadership proved that the United States and China could find areas of common ground and cooperation on issues that are important to our people. Our economies grew immensely. We partnered on important scientific endeavors, and crucially, we maintained relative peace in the Indo-Pacific region. This does not mean that there have not been areas of deep disagreement and tension. And the United States has shown that we can speak strongly in defense of our values when it comes to human rights, continued security and prosperity for Taiwan, and on many issues of great importance. It is because of President Carter's great contribution that we can stand up for these values while still promoting bilateral cooperation and peace between our two countries. And that lesson is extremely important today as we face an environment of heightened tensions and growing distrust. The United States is in a strategic competition with China's government, and it is important that we stand up for American workers who have been hurt by unfair trade practices, for Taiwan's safety and democracy, for our country's intellectual property, and for human rights. We must not, however, turn our back on diplomacy and cooperation, especially on issues where we simply must work together, like fighting climate change. And I am glad that the Biden administration agrees and is making a concerted effort to restore lines of communication. In fact, I consider my district and Southern California to be a shining example of the benefits of cooperation instead of confrontation. So many businesses and workers across the San Gabriel Valley and Southern California rely on tourism from China, which has greatly decreased in recent years. I was so pleased that Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo recently made an official visit to China to meet with business leaders and government officials to find areas where our countries can cooperate and to rebuild person-to-person communications. I'm especially proud to co-lead the Restoring Fulbright Exchanges with China and Hong Kong Act, which would reinstate exchanges of teachers and academics between our two countries, promoting mutual understanding, diplomacy, and improved communication. While our governments compete, we must preserve and restore the ability for the American and Chinese people to build an understanding of one another. Unfortunately, we have seen the incredible risk to our communities when irresponsible leaders use fear-mongering and xenophobia to achieve their political goals. We saw this way back in the 1800s during the times of Yellow Peril when anti-Chinese sentiment was at its peak and resulted in one of the most discriminatory acts passed by Congress, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Which prohibited Chinese people from becoming naturalized citizens. We saw this in 1913 when California passed the Alien Land Law, stopping all who were ineligible for citizenship from owning land, which meant nearly all Asian Americans. Numerous states followed suit, and we saw this during World War II when tensions with Japan led to the stripping of property ownership rights from Japanese immigrants and ultimately led to the incarceration of 120,000 Japanese Americans. And in recent years, Chinese Americans and more broadly Asian Americans have had targets on their backs, scapegoated for public health crises, economic downturns, and national security concerns. This xenophobia has resulted in the surge of anti-Asian hate during the COVID-19 pandemic, the creation of the China Initiative program that encouraged federal law enforcement agencies to racially profile and accuse Asian researchers of being Chinese spies, and new legislation seeking to restrict land ownership for Chinese immigrant communities across various states and in Congress. We cannot let history repeat itself. That is why we at the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus fought back on 3 years of anti-Asian hate and got the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act signed into law. We met with leaders at the Department of Justice and successfully pushed for the termination of the China Initiative program. And I recently joined Congressmember Al Green to introduce a bill prohibiting state alien land laws from taking effect. We must do everything that we can to push this bill forward. But this work doesn't happen through Congress alone. It is in partnership with so many of you here today, scholars and leaders who are committed to both enhancing mutual understanding between the U.S. and China, as well as promoting the well-being of our communities. So thank you again to the Carter Center for inviting me here today, and I look forward to continuing our strong partnership together.